yeah, nice and cozy. Good day, everyone. Hey, who's online? Manny, Casper, how you doing? Hope you're well.
Oh, good, good.
That's good. So we are running a bit late, but we should be fine. Hope you're all keeping warm. Winter has all of a sudden hit Joburg. It is ridiculous how cold it's been. Just tonight, we are recording the sessions and we will be uploading them to the YouTube channel. Tonight, what we are going to be doing is a recap of everything that came out of Build. So Build was a couple of weeks back, some really great announcements. If you attended it, you would have seen definitely the theme of the year is AI. Most of the sessions we're talking around AI, lots of cool new things coming. It came off of the bat of OpenAI's latest conference as well, where they released 4.0. And then we're talking about how we're bringing 4.0 into a lot of things as well. Once we introduce 4.0 into Copilot, that's going to be a game changer. You're going to see some of the things that we're going through today. So I'm going to be covering all the Power Automate announcements. David's going to go through Power Apps and Power Pages. And then Michael's going to take us through Copilot Studio. We've got a new interface inside there. You're taking them through the new interface, some of the new things that are coming in. So that is going to be great to see. Okay. So to start off on the theme of Copilots. How is it? There we go. So in Copilot now, you're going to have the ability to create scheduled prompts. Okay. So you can give your prompt, like in this one, I'm like, provide a comprehensive summary of my emails in chat in a table, split it by who it's from, the summary, the actions required, and the urgency from it. So if you go to the top, you're going to be able to say schedule it. You're then going to be able to go and set a time. At the moment now, you can only set it to repeat a maximum of 5 times. Okay, so hopefully this does get better and we can extend it out for longer. But like this prompt I have running every single morning. So I get in the morning, check my chat history, and I can see who the urgent ones are, which ones I should follow up on. So this is really going to help. Now, you can also go in and see which ones are active, which ones are inactive from them. It apparently goes and creates that Power Automate flow in your default environment in Power Automate, in Power Platform. Though I haven't seen it in our tenant. So I'm not too sure if they're redirecting it to another solution or storing it somewhere else, but that is the plan where it is going to be stored in the default environment. Can you see yours? Okay, so I just maybe didn't check it right. Do you see the expired ones as well? Or is it only? Okay. Yeah. Is it? Okay. Okay, so yeah, a way you can enable this in your tenant if you don't have it already. I can't really see it on this page. But at the bottom of your Copilot prompt, where you've got your chat window there, where you add your plugins. If you go to your plugins there should be a Power Automate one. If you don't have Power Automate in there, just go and add the app into Teams. Okay, and then once that's in, you can start saving these through. You may need an administrator to go and add it in for you. Okay. So this is quite cool. This is helping out. Next one, we are using Graph to give suggestions on flows. So based on the type of applications you're logging into, the type of people that you work with, the suggested flows are going to start building up based on things that you interact with on a regular basis, which is really going to help a lot. Because, I mean, it's going to have that idea of what you need to do. Like you can see there, manage your team's My Access entitlements by approvals in Teams. So you're going to bring that in quite nicely. Yeah. 100%. Next one that's also cool. I mean, we've got the conversation to cloud flows. We are now bringing, describing the flow and using natural language to desktop flows as well. But wait, you're going to see something really exciting just now, what we're bringing in the future. But this is just helping to extend the power of it. And the cloud flows in Power Automate using natural language definitely helps a bit. It helps get you started, especially with people starting out, understand how things come through. I think this is going to help a lot more from the RPA perspective as well. And then the Automation Center. I mean, we've been discussing things about this for a while now. This is in public preview at the moment. but just a place where you can view all of your flows, your work queues, get suggestions on how you can look at improving some of the items inside there. Um, also, which one was this? Oh, this was the queues, looking at the automation center itself and the work queues, see what the volumes look like. And then, of course, the recommendations. So this is really going to help you just get a handle on all the flows and everything that you have running inside of your environment. Okay. Now, one of the big ones coming in, AI flows. Okay. So this is going to change the game completely. It's going to change how we work with workflows, especially in Power Automate. So these things are created and executed all through an AI runtime. So it is leveraging those large language models to decide what steps to bring into the flow, also to execute the flow, how you run the code inside there. But essentially, you're going to describe what the process is that you're trying to automate. And it is going to introduce all the steps that you need. You can run a preview to test it out and see how everything runs, and then make sure that you're staying in control. So you could say, I want to build in my leave process, help people apply for leave. You can bring in your leave process documents into that so it understands what the process is and then builds out the necessary steps. So some of our exciting marketing videos just to help you see what is possible. Now I've got some screenshots. That's going to be really exciting once that comes in. I mean, you're not going to have to create any of the steps inside your flow. You're not going to need to manage them. AI is going to do that for you, and you're going to be able to coach it through the process of getting things done. So once you've got, now this is, none of us have access to this yet. Hopefully it will be coming soon. But once you start creating your flow, you'll see that you'll get an instruction coming out. So once you've given it a task, it is going to give you an overview of what that process looks like using natural language. You can then start bringing in your additional content. Like over here, I've got my payment authorization guidelines that I've brought in, and you can see we've got references that we can bring into this as well. You can make some slight changes to it, update it if it hasn't gotten it right from there. And then you can go and preview what the experience is like. And you'll see it will take you step by step through what it is doing. So a test run that's picked up some case details, everything around that. We then need to kick off the start and wait for an approval. We can check the telemetry, make sure that everything is looking good. And then we can say, okay, use the action. That's going to send through the approvals prompts. We can approve or reject it, and then monitor it to the end. So this way, what's also nice is it takes you through its thinking process, how it came up about this, why it's doing these steps. So that's going to be really exciting. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah, because I mean, if you see what's possible with this, timelines though, I'm assuming this is going to be building off of GPT-4 components and some of the other stuff that we're bringing in. So it's going to be really interesting to see when that comes up. I would assume so. I mean, they're still not showing everything that they're doing. So hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll start to hear a bit more of it. Yeah. Next one, and this one's also really exciting. Yes, Michael. I think it's the evolution of that in the next step. Because now what you would do in that is it would build out your template for you, and then you would still go and customize the templates. Instead of you having to go and update every single step, you are talking to the AI model, which is doing that all for you. So I think it's removing or lowering the barrier of entry for people to start building out a lot of these flows and executing them out, because you don't necessarily need to know how to work with loops, how to work with variables, all those expressions. It handles all of that grunt work for you. Okay. No. Well, no, I don't think it will do an adaptive per flow run. I think while you're busy building it, that where it could be adaptive and you could update and change it as needed. But once you've got it structured, it will be able to run and execute in the same fashion each time. That's what I've been able to pick up so far. Yeah. No, absolutely. The next one also, you can now, we're bringing in a new recording experience in Power Automate Desktop, giving you the ability to show the model what you want to do. So it goes in above. If you've done RPA flows, you know, you hit the record button and you start going through all the steps, and then you go and enter everything afterwards. Now you're going to be able to talk to the model, tell it what you're doing while you're going through that recording process and why you're doing it, and it is going to be able to spit out the content for you. Yeah, check this out.
Walk me through your processes using your voice and screen, and I'll help you automate this.
First, I go to Outlook and find emails with invoice attachments. For each invoice, I grab the vendor name, vendor email, due date, and the amount, and copy it into the invoicing app.
I think that one thing that they brought up briefly there, when a UI changes and it breaks your flow, you know what a pain it is to go and redo that. Now it is able to use AI to pick up that change, let you know, hey, this has changed. Should we go ahead and fix this for you? Yeah, so that's going to be great to see. I don't know if you saw some of the other videos we did with Microsoft 365 Windows Copilot with the integration into GPT-4o, where now you can have it looking at your screen. So you share your screen with it. No, not recall. This was something else where it's able to watch what you're doing and you can talk to it and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Help me through this process. And as you're going through, it can help coach you to get things done inside there. Yes, yeah. Yes. Yeah, I'll bring one up here quickly. Let me do this quickly so you can see. Yeah, all the build content is still available. Yes, yeah. So definitely go and have a look. Not, I've found some sessions that aren't available because there were ones that I bookmarked that I've suddenly seen have disappeared. So it definitely seems like there's some that are coming through, some that are not. Yeah, we go. No, it is. There's usually only so much you can take and catch up. Yeah, this was the one. Yeah.
Copilot, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing great, and it looks like you're about to dive into some Minecraft. Ready to build, explore, and maybe dodge a few mobs?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to make a sword. My son plays this game all the time, and I have no idea what I'm doing.
No worries. I'm here to help you impress your son. I see you've got a crafting table in front of you, which is a great start. To craft a sword, you'll need some materials. Can you open your inventory? Just press E on your keyboard.
Yeah, do I have what I need?
Let's see. You've got some sticks, perfect for the sword's handle, but it looks like you're missing the material for the blade. You can use wood, stone, iron, gold, or diamond. Let's start by gathering some wood or stone. Shall we head out and find some resources?
Yeah, that sounds great. Oh my God, what's that?
Oh no, it's a zombie. Run. You need to get away from it fast. Either sprint away or quickly build a tower of blocks straight up to get out of its reach. If you can find a shelter or dig into the side of a hill, do it now. Just make sure it can't reach you.
All right, I think I might be safe now.
Whew. That was a close one. Great job finding shelter.
No, well, it's going to be from everything. So, I mean, it's utilizing the way 4.0 works is it handles the transcription, the text to speech, the speech to text, and all the processing inside of it. So, it has been designed to support 97% of all languages out there. How well it does it, that's still to be seen. I mean, we've got lots of great models. It's like I built a demo the other day where we created a clone of Lillian Barnard. So a virtual avatar of her. And we stuck our language engines on there. So now she can speak in multiple languages. You can ask her a question in Swahili or Zulu, and she will respond in Swahili or Zulu. And we were having problems with the translation from Arabic. Like some of the stuff, it wasn't picking up the translations correctly and 100%. So it all depends on the language, all depends on how much work has been done there. But majority of the stuff it's able to pick up. And also remember, it's not listening word for word, it's looking at the context of the discussion that's been had. Yes. Yes. Yeah. I've seen some hilarious things in Teams transcripts. But the interesting thing is when you're querying that transcript with Copilot and you're asking it questions, it still gets out the information that you need to get out. Unless you're sitting with a 6-hour-long meeting, then it starts becoming a bit problematic. Okay. Next one, just one thing on AI Builder. AI Builder model selection is now available for when you're busy creating your prompts. So you can get your prompt in, get that decided, check the output, but now you can switch between the different models, 3.5 and 4. 4 is currently in preview, so it's not charging you any of your AI credits yet for that. Okay, so play around with it, test it out, but at least that way we can start switching between the models for our prompts that we're doing. Yes. Yes. Yeah, that was this one, hey. Oh, no, that was the recording from, yes, yeah. Oh, yes, oh, absolutely. I mean, we've got connectors and templates already into SAP 4 Power Platform. So I don't see why it wouldn't be able to connect into those things as well. Or you can do it through the UR prompt as well and be able to get it to automate that. You don't need it, you can move that from there. Yeah. So that's going to be a huge thing. Also, we've done a significant amount of work on hosted RPA as well. So now, instead of you having to have dedicated machines to run your RPA processes, you can spin up a cloud machine and that can auto scale based on the workload that is required. So if you're running month-end and you realize you're doing a lot of different processes, instead of you having to go and spin up all additional machines, that hosted RPA can scale out and scale down as and when you need it, which is going to be a real game changer, especially when you're running a hosted RPA, especially for situations like SAP and you want to extract those sort of things, definitely be able to come through. Really exciting stuff. Perfect. And I think that's me. David, I'm going to hand over to you now. They tried to do that a couple of times. Yes. Yeah. So, but what's fascinating to see is how many more products we've launched this year. All because of this. Because developers are able to roll out a lot more than we done in such a short period of time. It was something like we built more in the last 6 months than we had in the last 4 years. Yeah. How many things are saying? Yeah. Get that profile. Yeah. One of these famous places, Linux is a virus and it needs to be destroyed.
Going to get confused between these two things, and I'm going to start talking into the clicker. I'll be really concerned if it starts doing what I tell it to do, though. So, right, so now we're going to look at Power Apps and Power Pages and what's new and upcoming from Build. Who has checked out the book of news on Build? Yeah, so it's a little bit light, but you can go and check out the book of news on Build. Every year there's like a summary of key announcements, although it seems like a summarized version of a summarized version. It's like very, very light. There's not a lot in there. But okay, let's jump into it. So we're going to start with the Power Platform because obviously some of these things we're talking about affects all the different workloads. So it'll affect Power Apps, Power Automate, as well as Power Pages, as well as Copilot Studio, which is now the old Power Virtual Agents, just to keep life interesting. All right, first of all, well architected. So it's like a questionnaire or more a questionnaire that you complete with a whole bunch of questions around how you're conducting or how you're managing your Power Platform projects and environments. And it basically then comes up with a score and suggestions that you might want to consider in order to improve on it. And Azure, yeah. And so the short URL for that is aka.ms/power. It's not the power that Eskom is not making. I'm also not sure what power stands for. If it was PPWA, we would have said Power Platform Well Architected, although POWA. Any ideas? What could that stand for? Prisoner of war and all and all. All right. So anyway, so the kind of reports that you get out of this is quite cool. So you'll see here at the bottom, it's got things like establishing a design system and using established layouts and grouping patterns. And that's very cool. I can say that on projects where we've used established design systems, it makes a big difference because by the time that you deploy a new app, the users are already familiar with the existing look and feel, you know, what to expect from the applications, what it looks like, what it smells like, all of those sort of things. So it's really something to look out for and actually spend some time on. It's not a quick thing though, so I don't think you're going to do this in the 5 minutes that you've got to kill before your Monday stand-up. It's quite a lengthy process, but I definitely think it's worthwhile looking at. And it touches on things like user experience, performance, reliability, operational excellence. That's a nice one. Yeah, it's got a pillar called operational excellence, as well as security. So this is definitely something to go and check out, especially for larger type deployments. For those online, Michael said, yay. All right, next thing is Security Hub. Who has used the Secure Score on Microsoft 365? It's really cool. It's been around for a very long time, and very few people know about it. But you go and look at your secure score for any Power, or not Power, Office 365 or Microsoft 365 environment. It'll give you well, first of all, it'll give you a score, and it'll scare the daylights out of you. And then it'll tell you what you can do to improve on that score. So it's not all bad. Now, what this is, it's a very similar thing, but it's just focusing around the Power Platform. So it'll show you what you can do in order to improve on your security posture on the Power Platform. So it's also coming. It'll include things like data policies, firewall, VPN support, which is quite new, as well as security groups. So it's definitely something to keep in mind and to watch out for. Next thing, also very tightly aligned with security, is environment groups as well as default routing. So the idea with the environment group is that if you have multiple environments, so let's say, for an example, you've got multiple production environments, which in a large organization is more often the case than not, you can now go and set up a uniform set of configurations for your production environments. And then you can add those environments into that group, and then you change one setting and it applies to all of your production environments, which is quite cool. As well as the routing. So you can set up, if somebody in your organization go and creates a new app, that it already automatically gets routed to the correct environment. So you don't need to try and explain to your users where to go and create apps and where not to. So both of these are now generally available, which is definitely something you need to include in your toolkit. Then focusing on Power Apps specifically, first thing is optimize for devices. So what this does is you can actually go and enable this in your app settings. So you'll see that. So over there, you need to go and enable it. It's in preview at the moment. It'll be fine. Use it in production. And what this does, if you look at something like a camera control or a barcode scanner or controls like that, and it actually goes down quite granularly to things like toggles and dialog boxes and all of that. If you launch a Power App on your phone, it's using a wrapper. So it's actually not using the native controls for Android or iOS to perform that function. So if you go and optimize it for device, it means that you're rendering that screen with the controls from the device. So if you've got a camera or a barcode scanner, it'll actually then use native control to iOS or Android. So it'll perform a lot better, it'll feel a lot better, it'll smell a lot better, it'll just overall work a lot better. And then they do some wizardry to get that back into the app, and it's phenomenal. So go and have a look at this, be aware of it. It's still in preview today, but I think there's a lot of functionality that's sitting on the back of this, because once they get this right and deployed, I think all of your functionality on these Power Apps are just going to feel a lot better. So this is definitely something to watch out for. Next, we've got view code with code view. And so this is a little bit distorted. I'm actually going to do a tech tip on this later on to show you in detail what you could do with this. And what I like about this, well, a couple of things. But first of all, it's going to give us a better understanding of how Power Apps think in the back end. So if you're completing filling in a property in the front end or whatever the case may be, this will show you what it actually does and what it actually looks like. It also makes making a backup, of getting ahead of myself, but if you're working in an app and you're going to make some changes, to just go and take the screen, copy that entire screen into code, put it into a Visual Studio Code just as a backup, because if you break something, you could always go into the source code. Think of this as the source code of the Power App. So you can go into it to see what was it, before you started messing around with it. Also, sometimes when you're working in an app, you accidentally drag something, or you change a setting in a container, and now some of these properties in the controls in that container gets lost. So by doing this, you just keep that backup handy in Visual Studio Code. I think this is paving the way for many great things in Power Apps. Things like source control. One of the things that they've now announced is taking your entire solution and uploading and syncing that to Git, which is phenomenal. And I think this is all sitting that is all sitting in the back of this. So I'll go into this in a little bit more detail later on during the tech tip. Then this is not an announcement, although I saw it creep in. And it's not new, actually. You could have done this forever, but it was not that well known. So what it does is if you go and create a new app and you save that app, in the past, if you gave it the exact same name of an existing app, you had the opportunity to replace that app in such a way that it kept the app ID, the version history, and all of that intact. It just took your new version and just wrote that as the latest version of that app. So you could also always do it, but now they're just making it easier for you to show you that you want to replace an existing app. Gives you an app to select. You go and click on it, and it updates it into that app. You could always use the version restore function to get the previous version back. But the nice thing about this is the app ID and everything stays intact. So if you then take this through the ALM lifecycle and you publish it into UAT and prod, it's still the same ID. So all of the links from all of the users and everybody who shortcutted this from the desktops, which they really shouldn't do, all of those links will still work. Right, this is big. This is amazing. It's being able to call stored procedures directly from PowerFX. So in the past, you had to call Power Automate to interact with the stored procedure in SQL, get the results, structure the data, and then give it back to the Canvas app. Where with this, you can do it directly from the Canvas app, which is great. And it speeds it up dramatically because you're going to lose at least a second if you had to call Power Automate. It's actually quite fast, but there's a delay because it needs to call Power Automate, and Power Automate then talks to SQL. Where this works phenomenally well. It's still in preview. I have picked up that in certain schemas, so if in certain scenarios it's not returning the right schema, and then the IntelliSense doesn't work, although the data comes through. So we're actually working with Microsoft at the moment to troubleshoot that. But this is a game changer. I think this is going to change it. While we still use SQL, before everybody just uses Dataverse. Right, next. So co-authoring has come a very long way. And some of the announcements now from Build really goes around co-authoring. So I'm going to show you this video where you can have up to 10 people working in the same Power App at the same time. I would recommend that you pick those 10 people carefully. So you can see as things are changing in this app, the plumbing in the back end of this must be absolutely ridiculous. So, but yeah, so it's just becoming more and more mature. Yeah, that's amazing. So. Michael looks worried. Yeah. So this live co-authoring is just getting better and better, and they made some announcements around this at Build as well. So it's becoming a reality more, sooner than what we thought. Right, solution-wide DevOps. This is amazing, and in this video, you'll see how on the left-hand side you've got source control. It'll show you which items changed during this revision. You can then go and commit that to source control, everything, the entire solution. So whether it's a flow or an environment variable or a Canvas app, it'll upload all of that to source control, and there you go. So you'll be able to see what changed in the source. So I think this is an absolute game changer. So this is phenomenal. One of the things that it's not on this presentation, but on this topic, recently, I don't know how many of you guys know the difference between upgrade and update in solutions? So if you do an ALM through in a solution, in the past, we've always used upgrade, just like paying your TV license. It's the right thing to do. But now with update, they've made many changes in updates. And what that's now doing is they're actually suggesting that you use update if you haven't deleted anything out of the solution. And then it only updates the things that have changed. So we've seen solution upgrades. In the past, you could also do a version or a patch, which was dangerous, actually, to speed it up, because the upgrades, we've got big solutions that at some stage took like 3 hours to update. Where with this update function, it happens instantly. It's like 10 seconds. It's absolutely mind-numbing to see something that took 3 hours in the past now taking 15 seconds. So, and I think all of this, if you do something through the Power Apps or the pipelines, that's using update. That's no longer using upgrade. So they're doing a lot of work, and I think all of this is sitting on the back of that. Right, so now we get to the AI stuff. So first of all, use Copilot to create and understand PowerFX as well as rich data models. So this is very handy. So you can see there, you can give it a piece of PowerFX and you can ask it to explain it for you. So this is very handy if you don't understand other people's code, or if you don't understand your own code from a year ago, from yesterday, before you started diligently committing, and writing comments on your code. The nice thing is so there you'll see it gives you an explanation of what this code does. And then you could copy that and just put it in a comment. So do your future self a favor and just start commenting the code. So you could take blocks of code, ask it, what is this doing? Just take that, plonk it in the comment, and then you're off to the races. So that's pretty nice. Next thing is just writing the formula with PowerFX in the first place. So there you give it an instruction. Think of this like comment first. Before you even wrote the code, write the comment. And then you tell Copilot to go and write the code for that comment. So there you'll see that we told it to, if a percentage is above a certain value, then make it green, otherwise red. And then you tell Copilot, go and action that comment, go and write that code now. And then you can go and tweak it if you wanted to, and then that's it. So comment first. That's a new. I think we can coin that phrase. Then creating apps with Copilot has come a massively long way. So in the past, you could create tables, and you could sort of like. But the answer is the reality is that solutions don't just consist of one table. Now you can explain a scenario to it, and as you can explain a scenario to it, it can create multiple entities with relationships between them. So this is an example of orders and complaints. So it'll create the relationship between them. You can then select it and then go and give it additional things to do. So you can say, in this example, they're going to say, also give us an expiry date for the products. And then it'll automatically go and add those columns to the tables, set up the relationships, and you're off to the races. When it's finished with this, it actually spins up a Canvas app, and it'll have a screen for each one of the tables that allow it to interact with it, with a welcome screen with like a card gallery to each one of the tables, so you could go and get up and running in absolutely no time at all. So here, also uploading a list of drinks. Yeah, correct. So that's an Excel spreadsheet, and then it's got a product inventory, and you can go and create relationships the way that you want to. So that's phenomenal. So so I'm thinking that don't think of hobbies, think of things that you can do once that you no longer have to build Power Apps, because it's going to build itself. So yeah, you could ingest SharePoint into it as well. Yeah. Dataverse. Yeah, licensing is very few things that I've shown you now is free. So, but yes, no, I think most of these things would be. Yeah, so we've got, the good news is we've got Michael licensing O'Donovan in the room. So any questions? All right. And then we're also seeing that AI is making itself, or its way to the front end in the apps. So I'm sure Michael is going to show us a lot around this, but here in an application, you'll see there's a little button there at the bottom for Copilot. And if you now click on that, you can engage with Copilot. You can even talk to it and then interact with the data and from the Copilot that you've created. So, and it's now got access to Dataverse, so it can actually interact with your data in the app, and you can tell it to go and do things. So you can even tell it to go and submit a leave request for the following dates, for the following leave types, and it'll actually go and create that request on your behalf. So this is going to be an absolute game changer. Right, then Power Pages. So using PowerFX in Power Pages. So, and it's Microsoft's vision that you'd be able to use PowerFX everywhere. So I think that's going to be phenomenal. And even Power BI, I'm not sure how that's going to work yet, because there's certain things in DAX and M that I don't know how PowerFX is going to be able to do that. But that's the vision, is that you'll be able to use PowerFX everywhere. You can use it in Dataverse today as well. Then again, security. So there we go. All right. So the security, everything, well, there's a lot of work being done in security. And I think that this is going to become a bigger topic in future as Power Platform becomes more and more popular. It's going to be the go-to place for the bad guys to go and try and get to information, because they're going to know if you're Microsoft shop, you're most likely going to be using Power Platform, and they're going to start digging. So with the security workspace in Power Pages, you can do very cool stuff like scanning for vulnerabilities. You can go and do mock tests for things like SQL injections and DOS attacks and all of these sort of things to see how the site actually stands up to that. So I think this is going to be a big topic going forward as well. You can also from here go and set up your WAF, your web application firewall, as well as go and set up table permissions and web roles and all of those sort of things in one place, which has been sort of lacking in the past, because you had to go and do it set up your roles and permissions in Dataverse, and then come back and understand what impact that's going to have on everything. And then obviously it also gives you a score to motivate you to do better. So yeah, this is pretty exciting. That's my excited voice. All right, then the web application firewall is generally available now, and I think again with Power Pages gaining traction and popularity, I think it's something you need to start looking at, is making sure that site and pages are secure. So with the WAF, you can do a lot of different things around IP filtering and geolocation and all of that, and I think that's very, very important. Good. Then Power Pages site search with generative AI experience. So this is you can have your customers and people outside of your organization really interact with various sets of data, obviously that they've got access to, but because it understands like Jonathan mentioned earlier, it understands the intent of the question. It'll understand the context and all of that, and it's going to do a whole lot better in future than to give your customers the right answers from the data that you want to expose to them. And then it also has citations to the original content. So if it's policies and these sort of things, it'll tell you where to click to go and look at the actual document where it got the details from. Right, so this is just a short video that shows some of...
Woodgrove Bank is a fictitious institution offering various types of loans. The bank has developed a support portal featuring a site search powered by generative AI. This site created using a customer portal template, utilizes default tables for knowledge articles, cases, and notes to deliver search results. Makers can also add additional tables to further refine the search outcomes. When a bank customer visits the support portal seeking information, they notice the search bar on center of the home screen. They search for home improvement loan versus home equity difference. The site provides a summarized response and includes a citation link for detailed information. Next, the customer searches for, does Woodgrove Bank offer auto loans for used car? The site delivers a relevant summarized response. Continuing their inquiry, he query, what documents are needed for car loans, and receive the appropriate information. When looking for interest rates, the site provides instructions on how to access it. Since the customer already has an account, they sign into the site. Now, query the same prompt, give me the interest rates for car loans. The site provides detailed loan interest rates.
Yeah, so that takes things up a notch. Imagine being able to give customers that sort of experience out of the box. That's absolutely phenomenal. Right, and then card galleries. So if you're familiar with galleries in Power Apps, it's very similar to that, although I like the look and feel of this and the ease of configuring it. So that's available now on Power Pages. Then, yeah, this is a bit of a, I'm still trying to figure out how all of this works, but here you can do development in Power Pages in Visual Studio Code with co-authoring. So in Visual Studio Code, you'll see that over here, Alan is also working in this file or in this site. You could then easily contact him. Or over there, you can see who's currently working in this specific file through Visual Studio Code. So yeah, that's quite impressive, I think. So I see a lot of work being done on the CLI and the dev tools. And I think that in the future, can you imagine the speed in which you can, if you can jump into the YAML of things like Canvas apps, and there's no UI, you just tell the YAML what you want to do. And I think this is where it's all going. So Visual Studio Code, I think, is going to become a lot more active from a Power Platform perspective. Also, on that point, I've seen some of the CLI stuff where you could run PowerFX through the console in Visual Studio Code, and you can tell it you write it like filter accounts where name equals BMW, and it'll give you the results in the console. So, which is very cool to go and, yeah. All right, so yeah, this is also pretty awesome. Then Power Pages Copilot. So this is just absolutely next level. So with this, I'm going to quickly. The wrong screen. Right, so I'm just going to duplicate that now. But anyway, so from here you can tell it to build your entire site. So you could give it an explanation of what it is that you want to do, and it'll actually go and build out that entire site for you. You could then go and build specific pages. I don't know why that's not playing. You can go and build specific pages. It'll never break. It broke. Right, so you can describe, there we go. So you can describe the site that you want to build. You can give it all the information, and it'll actually just go and build it out for you. You could then go and add pages. So you can again describe the page you want to add, and it'll go and add that page. You can go and describe the form. It'll go and add the form. So it goes. It's not only at the top level, and then you have to fill in the details. You could really, from a granular perspective, go down to the finest details in the site, and it'll go and build it out for you. So even things like the theme, you can explain Copilot what you would like the theme to look like, and it'll go and set it up for you. Text as well, so for a website, I mean, text is absolutely critical to, so and that's the easiest bit for it. You give it a piece of whatever text that you want, and you can make it sound professional. So, I don't know what's going to happen to copywriting, but this is absolutely phenomenal. And that's pretty much it for Power Pages and Power Apps. Any questions? Anything else that somebody saw or noticed somewhere that I missed? And with that, over to Michael.
Okay, give me 10 seconds to set up. Happy days. Who we got anyone online still? Manny, you still there?
I am, yeah. It's the hardest thing to unmute yourself in time so that people don't assume you're not there.
So last month I did this session on Copilot Studio, and I showcased generative actions and generative answers. And I mean, it was an amazing session. I mean, I got a standing ovation. People were throwing clothes at me, like all these amazing things. And then a week later, Microsoft changed everything. So, yeah. So no, that's not entirely true. But what literally happened is at Build, Microsoft announced this new user interface, this new experience for Copilot Studio, and literally instantly, my Copilot Studio, when I went to copilotstudio.microsoft.com, had changed to this new UI. Anyway, so it took a bit of getting used to, but hopefully I'm over the speed bump, and I'm going to show you a whole bunch of what's new in Copilot Studio. And as David said, much of Build was about AI, and much of it was actually about copilots in general. And so Copilot Studio had some big appearances because it's arguably the best way to create custom copilots or extend existing Microsoft first-party Copilot. So Copilot for Microsoft 365 or Copilot for Sales, soon Copilot for Finance, etc., etc. So it's got a lot of kind of airtime and a lot of news kind of written up about it. If you want to see kind of like all the videos, the Copilot Studio videos. That's what this link here takes you to. And there were quite a few sessions. I'm going to make this up. There was about 10 sessions on Copilot Studio, which was quite a lot, I thought anyway. So yeah, just Copilot Studio Build 24 is essentially what you need to remember there. Then also, Dwayne has put on his YouTube channel what was announced for Copilot Studio Build 2024. I don't expect you to remember that link. But if you just search for his name and Copilot Studio, you'll find his channel. And it basically does similar to kind of like what I'm doing now, but highlights one or two other things which I'm not covering. So I wanted to share that with you. And just by the way, that first link that I shared with you will take you essentially to this page. And then at the bottom of this page, it's got a link to all the Copilot Studio sessions at Build. So that's just like a bit of intro there. So I'm not going to have many slides. I'm basically going to show you most of the stuff. And so now when I go to copilotstudio.microsoft.com, I land here. And so this now looks like the rest of the Power Platform, right? It looks like the Maker portal for Power Apps or Power Automate. And it forms kind of like the same structure. In the middle, I can describe what I want and let it build the Copilot for me. Here are my recent Copilots on the left-hand side. And for example, if I go to create, I also have this concept now of templates. So there's pre-built templates that you can use for your custom Copilots. So, you know, sustainability, maybe you want people to be able to ask questions around sustainability of your organization. And there's some new ones coming that aren't there yet, but stuff like CV matching and job crafting. This CV match, you know, this is going to help HR find appropriate people for open positions, which is pretty cool. And I've had a few organizations trying to custom build this at the moment. So this is awesome. Here's an interesting one. I want a voice Copilot. I'll come back to this a little bit later on. And also because remember there's two scenarios for Copilot Studio. I'm either going to build a new Copilot or I'm going to extend an existing Microsoft Copilot. So those are my two ways to get started if I'm going to build it from blank. Okay. And obviously if I have built some, then it's going to show them to me here. So for example, I've built one already called the Real Chuck. And I don't know if you remember, but from last time, we built Chuck. So now I've got the Real Chuck. The Real Chuck. Remember Milli Vanilli and the real Milli Vanilli. So yeah. So Nolo, I don't know if you've got a question. So yeah, so I click my Copilot, the Real Chuck, and so now I get a bit of a different user experience. So now that like the test chat is on the right instead of on the left-hand side, and I can still switch to other Copilots quite quickly. Here are all my Copilots. You'll actually see at the bottom here, this is where I can go and extend other Copilots. So the Copilot for Microsoft 365 or the Copilot for Sales. If I expand coming soon, you'll see Copilot for Finance and Copilot in SharePoint. This was actually another announcement is Copilot in SharePoint, which is a native Copilot that sits like on the right-hand side of SharePoint sites that you just through simply configuration, it gets empowered by the content in that SharePoint site. So a lot more than that, you can do some interesting stuff with it. But yeah, I would definitely go and look for, there's a few sessions around that as well, which is pretty interesting. So yeah, so I've got all my existing Copilots here that I can switch between. I'm just going to take this away. And there we go. So I've got this new overview page, which allows me to kind of like get started quite quickly. And last time what I showed you was how you add content, and I pointed to SharePoint and I pointed to ServiceNow, and I did a few different scenarios. We've got this new concept of a knowledge hub. So the knowledge hub is where you basically point to content or ground your Copilots in content. And so either I can go up to the top here or just add knowledge here. And so you can see I've added a few. So let me just add knowledge. I want to show you something interesting. I've got some new sources. So previously it was SharePoint and kind of like OneDrive and public websites, and I could upload files. But Dataverse is now listed in there. So this is pretty interesting. What I can do here is I can point it to Dataverse tables. And now I can just ask questions of content in those Dataverse tables. So what I did earlier on is I actually went through this process and I connected to a table that I've got called job vacancies, which are basically positions in the organization. I've got a whole solution around managing jobs and stuff, but I just pointed to one table, which is the vacancies table. And so let's just leave this. So that's what this job vacancy is here. Another thing that's pretty cool here is all the other content sources that will kind of like be there. So you'll see a few ServiceNow ones, ServiceNow tickets, knowledge, SAP. So these are, some of them are in preview, some are coming soon. This one's interesting, Microsoft Fabric. What this is in Microsoft Fabric, Microsoft announced something called Fabric AI Skills. So what you can go and do inside of Microsoft Fabric is you can create an AI skill, essentially kind of chat empowering data. And so I can ask questions of data in Fabric. And so what happens here is if I click that, I can actually point to that AI skill. And so from Copilot that I build in here, I can ask questions of data in Fabric. Okay, so I can ask questions of data in the Dataverse, but I can also ask questions of data in Fabric. This is like just outrageous. I'm saying it's like, but this is pretty hectic. This is very, 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 very cool. That was yesterday. Now, I did this last time, this exact same question. Can I carry leave over from one year to the next? And because I've pointed to the same SharePoint site, there's an HR knowledge base site that I've pointed to that's got our leave policy document in here. I should get the same kind of result as I did last time. Things will be good and life will be happy. It might be a little bit slower than last time. Come along as it happens. Come along. And I should get the answer in a second. Come on. Now that I'm standing up here, obviously this is. Yeah, I probably messed up somewhere, but anyway. Okay, well, this is what happens. Why I have no idea. I've never had this not work. Maybe I need to just refresh my browser. Oh, there we go. So it ignored my first question. I don't actually know what happened to that one, but I asked how many vacancies are there. And this is actually looking in the Dataverse table, and it says there's 6 vacancies. And then it actually gives me a link to that Dataverse table, essentially a model-driven app that when I click up, it's going to show me what those vacancies are. So that's this job vacancy scenario over here, which is pretty cool. And it's still got the same, actually behind the scenes, it's generative answers, which I showed last time. But what's different now is it's kind of like I've got a different way of configuring it. So I can go and choose specific knowledge sources, or I can say, actually, it must use all of them. So it's slightly different in terms of the way that you can configure it and override it. But fundamentally under the hood, I guess it's doing a similar thing. Let's do this. It could be. Yeah, it could be. So I'm going to ask, how old is the Queen of England? Anybody guess what's going to happen? So what's interesting here is debug mode is on. So it said only visible to me. No information was found that could answer this. And so it's busy giving me a little bit of, you know what, this is, so we're kind of building in this debug scenario of telling you kind of like what's going on. Obviously in kind of for you, when this gets published to people, to end users, they won't see this, but they'll see this. I'm sorry, I don't know how to answer that. And yeah, so cool, because I've told it to only use the content that I've pointed it to rather than kind of come up with its own things. And what's interesting here, if I just leave this, you'll see there's this feature in preview, allow the AI to use its own general knowledge. So if I turn that on, it would probably attempt to answer that based on non-grounded content, or essentially the language model under the hood. There's a few other interesting things here, kind of like debug. If we've got this thing called conversation map. So if I go here, which it's probably not going to show me really well now. It's only really in generative actions. And then it's like when it's dynamically at runtime coming up with how it should execute, it'll give me that view over here of how it's dynamically coming up with stuff it should do. So that's pretty cool. Another one that I thought is cool, which kind of snuck in, which no one really spoke about. I'm just going to go to a topic here. I've got a topic called CV and candidate questions. So I've got the scenario where I want to be able to ask questions of candidate CVs. So there's a CV, and I just want to ask questions of the CV. Okay. And so what I've got is I've built a specific topic for this, and this topic will fire if it sees anything related to this over here. So this thing answers questions related to CVs and candidates. And what I could do in here is I could add like generative answers or use generative actions to go and like interrogate a CV. But what I found is sometimes that doesn't give me exactly what I'm looking for. I want more control. And so maybe I want to call an AI model directly myself. And so in the past, what I might do here is I might call Power Automate, and then in Power Automate call a model. But what we've introduced is actually the ability directly from here to call AI Builder. So what I can do is I can say call an action, and you'll see here I've got this new option of creating a prompt. And that creates a prompt in AI Builder. Okay, so let's open this up. So I said create a new prompt. So it's going to create a new prompt in AI Builder. And so now I can write exactly what I want my prompt to do. Okay, please answer the questions about the CV below. And what's quite cool here, and Jonathan showed it earlier on, I can also now choose between GPT 3, 5, and 4. But there's a few other interesting new features in here as well. So for example, I can tell it that I want the output in JSON rather than text, and then it'll always output the response as JSON. And the other one is being able to use Dataverse data directly in here as well. So there's quite a few sessions around this, which is quite useful and goes into more detail. So I can go and add input variables. So I've already created a prompt. So I've got a prompt that takes two input variables. The one is the user's question, and the other input variable is the CV. And so the prompt basically says, below is a CV. You are an HR assistant. Answer any questions that are proposed to you on this content, and then it's got the user question. So there's two properties that come in, and then it essentially responds. So let's just try this out. Let's hope this demo goes a little bit better. So here I've got ask questions about a CV. So this is a prompt that accepts two parameters. So the first parameter is the person's question, which is essentially going to be the activity text. That's what it is. So that's the text that essentially fired this topic. and then the content of the CV. Now, typically, obviously, there would be a step before this where I'd actually go and get the content of the CV. And depending on the scenario, would depend how you do that. But just for demo purposes, let's jump here. I made up a CV for this person called Henry James, who speaks English and Spanish and has a few certifications and some education history, etc. So I'll just paste it in here, but it's not really what you should do. And then the output, let's add a new output here. So AI Builder is essentially going to put the result into this record. And then now let's display the response. So the response here, I'll just change, actually I'll use, so when the response comes back, it's going to have two properties, a finish reason and text. Let's just use the text. So if you've worked with GPT, you'll understand what those things are. Let's hit save. Okay, so now I'm going to say, I hate holding a microphone in my left hand and typing with one hand. Does the candidate have power platform? I'm typing like my mom, one finger. So there we go. You can see this kind of like debug window showing up here, the conversation map. And shortly I should get a response. Yes, the candidate has Power Platform skills as mentioned in the CV. They are proficient in Power Apps, Power Automate, Dynamics 365, and a working knowledge of Azure. Like, this is cool. This is so cool. This is so cool. Okay, so this is just a different Copilot that I created. This is no longer the real Chuck. This is another one, but the template that I used was one designed for voice. And so what we can also do now is there's a new channel. When I publish the Copilot, I can choose a voice channel. I can choose telephony. So I can phone it. There's many ways to interact via voice, but one way is through phone. I can phone the chatbot and speak to it. And so if I speak to it, maybe I'm operating it like IVR. You know, it says press 1 for sales and 2 for complaints and whatever it might be. And so I built my chatbot like that, but now I'm going to talk to it. So I built it almost like usual, but I have a whole bunch more settings which are unique for an IVR type of scenario or a voice scenario. So for example, if you say something like, if you're using text chat and I'm chatting, how does it know when I'm finished chatting? It's because you press enter, okay, or you hit send. But when I'm speaking, how does it know I'm finished speaking? Yes, exactly. So these are all the types of settings that you have available. You know, after how much pause is it considered I've finished speaking? When I say press 1 for sales and the person presses 1, do you also have to press the hash key or the pound key afterwards? Don't you? How does it understand those things? So these are all settings that you can go and control in here. Using, you know, DTMF is essentially when you're using a dial pad. But you don't have to press 1. You can just say, I'd like sales. I don't have to press 1. So press 1 for sales, or just simply say the word sales. Sales. Oh, okay, and then off it goes. So I'm not going to, this is a whole section by itself, but they really are thinking about this. And even so much so that if you look in your test window here, I now get a dial pad. So I can do, you know, testing of it this way. And you'll see the chat mode. I don't know if you noticed this earlier on. When I was in the real Chuck, it was text, but now I've changed the chat mode to speech and DTMF. Okay, so some new advances there. Another thing, I forgot about this one a little bit earlier on, but you'll see something here called Manage Connections. Manage Connections, this is kind of also snuck in, but it's really cool. So if you've ever built a Power App, when you connect to something, if I'm using a Power Platform connector and I'm connecting to something, typically that connection, when it executes against that data source, maybe it's speaking to SharePoint or it's speaking to Teams or it's speaking to SQL, that will execute under the context of the person using the app. But so far in Copilot Studio, when you add a Power Platform connector to it, it executes that under the context of the person that created the chatbot, that created the Copilot, not the person using it, which is a problem. So what we've introduced now is when you use a Power Platform connector in Copilot Studio, you can specify whether it must execute that under the context of the person that created the Copilot or under the context of the person that's using the Copilot. And so this is what this is all about. I can go and see, oh, what are all the connections my Copilot is using? Just like you can in Power Apps or Power Automate, you can go and see all the connections it's using and change them. The same thing I can do here. Okay, so whether I'm using like that connector via generative actions or not, it's the same. I'm essentially using a Power Platform connector. I had a good example the other day. Someone was building a Copilot Studio to interact with Azure DevOps, and they wanted to see a list of their projects. Well, it doesn't help if it keeps showing the projects of the person that created the Copilot. They want to see the projects of the person that's using the Copilot. So that's new, and you will see it now and again when you add a connector. It'll actually give you a drop down. How should this work? Should it use as the end user authentication or as the Copilot owner's authentication? Happy? Okay. One more thing I do want to talk about, but I can't show you. Actually, two more things, but this one's really fast. So the first one is improvement in analytics. There's improvements in analytics. Happy days. Okay. Let's just move on. The second one, more importantly and more exciting, also one I don't fully understand, is something called agents. So Microsoft announced something called agents. What is an agent? I think of it kind of like this. I can go and build out this Copilot to do stuff. Maybe, through instruction, I'm asking it to compare CVs or match a person to a CV, but I'm instructing it, I'm initializing a conversation with it. Wouldn't it be cool if I could assemble it kind of like in the same way, but it just ran in the background? So the trigger is not me chatting to it. The trigger is a new CV landing in a SharePoint library. And then it goes and runs and it does its thing. And maybe there's no chat at all, actually. So it's almost like what Jonathan showed at the beginning, where I can go into Copilot for Microsoft 365 and I can schedule actions for my Copilot to take. It's kind of like somewhat similar to this, where I can go and build out this Copilot, but there may not be any UI associated to it. Yeah. It's a bit weird because to some degree, it's no longer a Copilot. It's a pilot. So that's a little bit scary. I don't know if I'm misunderstanding it, but you'll see now. And the other thing that's interesting is it's blurring the lines between Power Automate flows and Copilot Studio Copilots. What is the line between them? In actual fact, when you see this video now, look at the UI for the Copilot that it's being built. It looks like Power Automate.
Okay, it looks like actions. There's a trigger. It looks like Power Automate to some degree. So yeah, I think the future is interesting here. Microsoft is certainly super excited about this. So let's see. This video is going to go fast. It's more a marketing style video. There are complete demonstrations of this in build sessions that I linked to earlier on. So do go watch them if this is something that you think looks interesting.
Redefine business processes with Copilot Studio. Create copilots that act as agents, working independently for you. Simply describe what you want your copilot to do. Easily configure your copilot with the details it needs, like instructions, triggers, knowledge, and actions. Quickly test your copilot before you deploy. And seamlessly publish across multiple channels. Watch it use memory for context, reason over user input, and manage long-running tasks. Copilot can learn from feedback to improve. And you're always in control. Put Copilot to work for you with Copilot Studio.
Go away. They're not allowed to leave. I've locked them in. So it's Copilot Studio, but it looks like a flow, doesn't it? It looks like automation. And this one is an onboarding process. So they basically have created this process that when someone new gets employed, there's some type of trigger that fires that off. Maybe it's in, Workday or I don't know, some type of HR system. And then off it goes. But actually, it's a Copilot. It's not a flow. Yes. And I suspect what's quite cool here is at some points along this, it might reach out to you. So it might reach out to you via a Teams message and ask you some questions, and then you respond, and then off it goes, and it carries on doing its thing again. Yeah. So David is correct. Then the human becomes the co-pilot. I'm not sure that's the intention, but anyway. And there were a few interesting things from the demo. Also, what was interesting is the instructions. I don't know if any of you remember, I once built this pizza ordering bot. And the way it worked was you just gave it instruction. You said, you are a pizza ordering bot. You must take the complete order. Make sure you summarize the order before the end. Here's the menu. Go. And it just went and had the whole conversation backwards and forwards. And it looks like I can do a similar thing now here in Copilot Studio, where I can put in an instruction to say, hey, this is the overall goal. This is the things you need to do. This is the way you need to operate. And I don't physically go and orchestrate or create topics and generative actions and stuff. I might give it some of those things as, okay, here's some knowledge sources. If you need to get stuff, here's some knowledge sources. Here's some APIs. If you need to call some stuff, here's some APIs. But here's overall your objective and what you need to do. That's your job. And that's what it looks like it's doing. Yes. 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 Yeah. So the questions around how does this audit, etc. Look, I don't know. I mean, this is probably a fictitious example, but if I think about it in the normal way that we've been doing this with automations, is when these things speak to systems, it's still happening under an identity. So you can audit what has happened when. This thing touched this system, it touched this system. Yeah, but it's now a system doing it rather than a human doing it. So, and in fact, a lot of the stuff, like the way the Copilot for Microsoft 365 works, it works under your identity. So it's your identity that's touching these systems. It's just not you doing it. You've asked Copilot to do it for you, but it's still happening as you. Yeah. So but these are things you would have to iron out. Yeah. Yes. 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 Yeah. Yeah. So I know we're actually over time, but that's because we started late. That's not because of me. Do we do your tech tip now, or do we? Okay. 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 I hope that was useful. I think it's super exciting. How fast is this stuff moving? Lightning. It's crazy. We just got to like, yeah, yeah, it's crazy. Okay. Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that. Yeah. So please, if you haven't started getting to grips with Copilot Studio, like you need to, like honestly, like you need to. August. August. Yeah. 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 Happy days. Let's go enjoy some food.